Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tibra Vanachari. Yamuna Tibra Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabiyari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabiyari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottavam devim saraswatyam vyasam tato jayam udirayet nashtapayeshvajeshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtaki. Continuing our reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, Questions by King Parikshit. Text number. I heard there was some confusion about yesterday. I think 19, right? Text 19. Tadvanam parisankyanam lakshanam hetu lakshanam purusharadhana vidhir yogasyadhyatmikasya cha tadvanam parisankyanam lakshanam hetu lakshanam purusharadhana vidhir yogasyadhyatmikasya cha tattvanam parisankyanam lakshanam hetu lakshanam purusharadhana vidhir yogasyadhyatmikasya cha.
Tatvanam parisankyanam lakshanam hetu lakshanam visharadhanam vidhir yogasyadhyatmakasya cha.
Tattvanam parisankyanam lakshanam hetu lakshanam purusharadhana vidhir yogasyadhyatmikasya cha.
Purusharadhana Vidir yogasyadyatmikasya cha
Tattvanam parisankyanam lakshanam hetu lakshanam purusharadhana vidhir yogasyadhyatmikasya cha.
Tattvanam parisankyanam lakshanam hetu lakshanam purusharadhana vidhir yogasya dhyatmikasya cha.
Tattvanam, of the elements that constitute the creation. Parisankyanam, of the number of such elements. Lakshanam, symptoms. Hetu lakshanam, the symptoms of the causes. Purusha, of the Lord. Aradhana, of devotional service. Vidhi, rules and regulations. Yogasya, of cultivation of the yoga system. Adhyatmikasya, spiritual methods leading to devotional service. Cha, also. Translation. Kindly explain all about the elementary principles of creation, the number of such elementary principles, their causes, and their development, and also the process of devotional service and the method of mystic powers. There's no purport, so we can read the next text, and we'll read the translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Yogeshwaraishwarya Gatir Linga Bangastu Yoginam Vedopaveda Dharmanam Itihasa Puranayo. Translation. What are the opulences of the great mystics, and what is their ultimate realization? How does the perfect mystic become detached from the subtle astral body? What is the basic knowledge of the Vedic literatures, including the branches of history and the supplementary Puranas? Purport. The Yogeshvara, or the master of mystic powers, can exhibit 8 kinds of wonders of perfection by becoming smaller than the atom or lighter than a feather, getting anything and everything he desires, going anywhere and everywhere he likes, creating even a planet in the sky, etc. There are many Yogeshwaras having different potencies in these wonderful powers, and the topmost of all of them is Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is the greatest yogi. He can perform such wonderful things, far beyond the ordinary living beings. The devotees of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, do not directly practice the process of mystic powers, but by the grace of the Lord, his devotee can defeat even a great Yogeshwara like Durvasa Muni, who picked a quarrel with Maharaj Ambarish and wanted to show the wonderful achievements of his mystic powers. Maharaj Ambarish was a pure devotee of the Lord, and thus without any effort on his part, the Lord saved him from the wrath of Yogeshwara Durvasa Muni, and the latter was obliged to beg pardon from the king. Similarly, at the time of Draupadi's precarious position, when she was attacked by the Kurus who wanted to see her naked in the open assembly of the royal order, the Lord saved her from being stripped by supplying an unlimited length of sari to cover her. And Draupadi knew nothing of mystic powers. Therefore, the devotees are also Yogeshwaras by the unlimited power of the Lord, just as a child is powerful by the strength of the parents. They do not try to protect themselves by any artificial means, but are saved by the mercy of the parents. Maharaj Parikshit inquired from the learned Brahmana Shukadev Goswami about the ultimate destination of such great mystics, or how they attain such extraordinary powers by their own efforts or by the grace of the Lord. He inquired also about their detachment from the subtle and gross material bodies. He inquired also about the purports of the Vedic knowledge, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15. The whole purport of all the Vedas is to know the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus become a transcendental loving servant of the Lord. Maharaj, would you like to make some comments? That would be nice.
When one acquires these mystic powers, they're not necessarily spiritual. Becoming smaller than the smallest isn't necessarily a spiritual activity, because living entity is already small. But these things can be used in devotional service, and that's why they're given to the devotees as they need them. If a devotee needs mystic powers to perform his service, the Lord arranges it for him. And that's proper use. Like Narad Muni. Narad Muni needs to travel quite a bit. He's such a enthusiastic preacher. He has such unlimited desires to bring Krishna consciousness to everyone, save them. So he needs mystic powers. So he's given. The Lord arranges for him to travel at the speed of mind. He can travel in the material world or the spiritual world. He's allowed to go either place freely, with no passport necessary, no. And even the demons show him all respect. To my knowledge, there's no mystic power that is designed to allow one to have the freedom that Narad Muni has. But he got it just because of his devotional service. So by performing devotional service exclusively to the Lord, one gets everything he needs for anything. He has all the opulence he needs, like Ambarish Maharaj. He was a king, so he needed opulence. So he got opulence. And when he needed protection, and he got protection, he didn't have to fight himself. When Durvasa Muni created, if I'm not mistaken, he created a demon to kill Ambarish. So Ambarish wasn't afraid. He didn't take a step to defend himself because he knew that this is not something that is meant for me. He's not my enemy. So he just depended on Lord, and Lord took care of it. This is not laziness on the part of the devotee. The devotee is willing to do any service for the Lord, whether it's construction, or whether it's like building the universe. Brahma has a duty of constructing, designing, and executing the development of the whole universe. And he's happy to do that. So the devotees are eager to do any service for the Lord. Any service they can get, they're happy to have it. And it's also interesting that Parikshit Maharaj is asking all these questions. Wants to know about mystics astral body. It's like nowadays, these things are popular. How does a mystic become detached from the subtle astral body? What's the basic knowledge of Vedic literature? Branches of history, supplementary, wants to know about the Puran. See, he's got all the interest. The Lord, everything about the Lord is interesting. It's not that just one part. Everything there is connected to the Lord, and therefore everything becomes interesting. When one knows how Krishna is working, then he loves all subjects. He can talk on philosophy or cosmology or geography or how the entities are created in the womb. You can discuss all these topics with great interest. He's excited to explain them. As you see, Srila Prabhupada spoke on so many topics. Srila Goswami speaking, so many topics. And the devotees like all these topics. It's not that devotees only want to hear about Rasa Lila. No, that is considered to be a deficiency if one cannot appreciate the bellicose activities of the Lord, such as fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The highest devotees, they relish those activities as well as the Vrindavan activities, because they know this is the same Supreme Lord doing all these activities. Therefore, it's like a mother. If you say now, today we'd like to discuss your son when he was in the army. She says, yes, she'll be happy to discuss. Now we'd like to discuss your son when he was a little baby. Yes. It's not that she only says, I only want to discuss it when he was a baby. I don't want to discuss when he was old. No, she loves all the pastimes of her son. Assuming the devotees love all the pastimes of Krishna. They like to hear all of them.
Can I ask a question? So we hear when everybody is meeting at Kurukshetra for this eclipse, and the gopis see Krishna and they're disturbed because they say this is not Krishna, this is Krishna from Dwarka, because they have a different rasa. So my question is, if somebody has a particular rasa, is there a point that they're drawn to hear certain topics and they?
But the gopis also, they love to discuss. They say, we know about this Krishna. We know better than you. Previously, when he came as Lord Ramachandra, he had the nose and ears of Shurpanaka cut off. How cruel he is. And now we know about Krishna. He's going in the nighttime to spend time with that crooked woman. What's her name? Trivakra? Gurupuja? We know about Krishna. We know all about him. So they can go on talking in all of his pastimes. And they enjoy those pastimes in the right time and circumstance. So it's not like they don't care or they don't know. They know, they care. But sometimes they have to, they like to criticize. But it's part of the loving exchanges. It's not that they're angry with him or they don't care about his other pastimes. They're thinking about all the time. Krishna's on the chariot, but they think he's on the chariot, but he should be coming to Vrindavan. So they're the highest devotees, and no one can understand them. Anyway, to understand the pastimes, the relationship between Krishna and the gopis is very high position and only very advanced devotees can understand that. But we hear whatever the acharyas give to us. It's like Srila Prabhupada gave us Krishna book. Even before he finished the Bhagavatam, after I think just maybe second canto or something, or before, he began working on Krishna book because he knew that if he left the world soon, which he could have at any time, he thought I should give them this opportunity to understand it correctly. So he did that. And so the whole world now can understand Krishna and his pastimes in Vrindavan and everywhere correctly through Srila Prabhupada's careful guidance.
Jai, thank you, Maharaj. So upon reading this purport, something that came to my mind was there's a saying I've heard many times: "The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away." So I was thinking in terms of how I usually hear this for a materialist, a karmi. You know, they get things, the Lord gives them, they're happy, and then the Lord takes things away, they're sad. So here, you know, the Prabhupada was mentioning Draupadi. She's depending on the Lord's mercy, and he provides the sari for her. The Lord giveth. Also in Vrindavan, we hear Krishna's dealings with these unmarried gopis. He's taking away all their clothes. So he giveth and he taketh. But when it's dealt with Krishna, you know, on this spiritual plane, on this spiritual platform, it's all good. It's relishable for everybody. So this is the point that these mystic yogis, they become attracted by material opulences, which, you know, they can be more subtle. Like Maharaj said, they're not always necessarily spiritual. So they can be dealing with more subtle aspects of the material creation, but there's still opulences, which are opulences coming from the Lord. But the devotee has no interest in this because the bliss and pleasure that's derived, the rasa, the exchange from serving the Lord directly, is infinitely times more relishable than trying to control or manipulate anything in the material world. You know, this Maharaj was speaking about Narada Muni traveling everywhere. And this question here, it says, what is the basic knowledge of the Vedic literatures, including the branches of history and the supplementary Puranas? So I've been reading the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which a large part of it was dealing with Narada Muni, who was traveling all over the universe. He was trying to find which devotee had the highest mercy of the Lord, who had the most mercy. And then after that, there's a Gopakumar. He's traveling all over, trying to find the Supreme Lord of all creation, of who he can serve, who brings him the highest, most bliss and ecstasy. And currently, when I'm reading at, he went up to, you know, the heavenly planets, and from the heavenly planets to these planets that are above those, and then he got to Brahma, Satyaloka, where Brahma lives, and, you know, he's serving the Lord there, and he's pleased. But then he sees something higher and more, and then there's all these Vedas personified. They begin having a conversation. It begins like a philosophical discourse, and there's all sorts of different shastras, Dharma shastras, and, you know, these all levels of Vedic scriptures, and ultimately the bhakti scriptures reign supreme. And then they begin speaking, and a lot of what they're speaking on is how great, how immensely more wonderful it is to serve the Lord rather than the impersonal realization. So, you know, a lot of yogis are taking to these yoga and meditation and all these practices to derive an impersonal realization, you know, mukti. And, you know, these scriptures were really breaking it down of why mukti is not really desirable in relation to devotional service. And devotional service is so nice. It's not like We have to do so much practice to get to a certain point so we can control our senses. Practice is there, but we're already doing what we're aspiring to be doing. We just haven't realized it. And we're coming to the temple, we're seeing the Lord, dressing the Lord, chanting the Lord's names, praising Him, cooking for Him. And I read a quote from Prabhupada. Prabhupada was talking about the service of being a pujari, which pujari doesn't necessarily mean somebody who's directly on the altar. It could be somebody who's cooking in the kitchen, you know. It's all based around serving the deity, so it's in the same department. But the point was, Prabhupada made a comment saying that pujari is the highest position one can have in this world because you're already doing what you do in the spiritual world. You're waking the Lord, you're bathing Him, you're cooking for Him, you're tending to His needs. So I thought that was very nice because this is a big emphasis of the temple. The temple should be built around the deities, and all the devotees should work together to serve the deities, praise the deities, gather in Sankirtan. And in this way, the Lord becomes pleased. And when the Lord is pleased, everybody becomes pleased. And like I mentioned, we're already doing this highest work, but the only thing that's preventing us from seeing it is our own realization. And what is that? Attention to detail is very, 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 very important. Punctuality, cleanliness, and every little thing. Say you're cooking and you're preparing the plate for the Lord. You could just throw everything in a bowl and send it up to the altar. Okay, the offering's ready. It's 2 minutes late. Okay, I think that's good. Or you could say, oh, this is going to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is full of all opulences. Let me try my best to make this look the most presentable. Let me put a little garnish here, a little ginger here, a little extra thing. Let me arrange it so the rice is next to the dal and next to the sabji and the sweets over here. Not just throw everything all on one plate. So everything that we should do, we should be very diligent in our attention to the detail of all the finest, minute details of our service to Krishna. And this goes for service, like I'm mentioning, for like pujari work, which includes cooking. This goes for cleaning in the temple, making garlands, but chanting the holy names, even book distribution. Really, I remember distributing books, and at one point, I don't know, I never was so great, but at one point things were kind of rolling more fluid, and it was like a constant meditation of I'm talking to this person, dealing with them, and then just judging every little thing, their body relation, their body movement, like the way they respond to the way I'm saying, the different volume of what I'm speaking, how I interject at certain times, and just meditating on that from one person to the next person to the next person, and really tweaking every aspect of that so you can do better service, so you can help get more books out, but more importantly, connect others to Krishna. So this is the difference between material consciousness and Krishna consciousness. Krishna, we're putting him here in our life, but what does that mean? We have to be conscious of him, be conscious of his wants, his needs, these details. And we might not know that, which is fair enough because we're all coming from such a crazy conditioned background, all of us with our own issues, tendencies, habits. So we hear from the acharyas, we hear from the guru, and we hear from the devotees who are, more knowledgeable and more advanced than us. And we should, be open to taking advice. It's a funny thing. Life, the false ego. We often say, oh, lay it on me. Tell me all these things. I want to know these things so I could get better, so I could work. And then somebody actually does it and then it hurts. It really hurts. So, we have to really be mindful in how we deal with others so we can share what needs to be heard, what can be heard, in a way that actually uplifts one another. Because it's very easy to see the faults in all others, but to see the faults within our own self is harder. Even harder than that is to actually correct our faults, to be above those faults. And everybody's going through their own situation, their own problems. Everybody has things going on. It's easy to see one person acting one way and you just make a snap judgment why they're doing that. Oh, he left the temple at this time. He should be doing this. He should be doing this. But, unless you go ask or talk, you have no clue what's going on. Something important could go on. Something else is happening. We never really know. It's so easy to make so many snap judgments. But yeah, this attention to detail is very important, and we should really, really focus on this in all of our activities. And the more that we do, the more our consciousness becomes refined. And it's very, very easy to tell. It's like the more you dial into this, it's like Paramatma is right there in your heart, guiding you, teaching you how to do your service better. But the more ignorant we are, we're not listening, we're not taking heed of what's ready to be offered. This is Krishna's mercy. It's said that when one leaves this material world, if they're going back to Godhead per se, then they enter into another material world where Krishna is coming to take play his pastimes. And you come and you take a role in those pastimes. Why? So you can get trained up properly. So you can enter into the spiritual dimension. So training is there. We need lots of training. And this training is coming from the guru, who's without, as the spiritual master, outside, externally, but then also Chaitya Guru, Paramatma within our heart, who's trying to guide us and teach us. And like I said, the more we can refine our consciousness and really tune into that, allow that message to come through, and it seems the best way to do that is to chant very attentively, very, very, very attentively. Put a lot of focus on chanting. We can very easily, I think every time I give class, I talk about japa, but I find it the most important thing. When we're taking vows on initiation, we vow not to do 4 things, but we only vow to do 1 thing. And it's so easy to get into a habit of, oh, it's this thing that I have to do, 16 rounds. Okay, I feel like I'll never do it. Let me get to 16. All right, Jai, now I can go do some other activities. But the more we can really, really focus and hear and give our full attention, our full energy towards chanting, there's profound effects. Chanting should not be a burden. It should be something that we're eager to do. We should wake up in the morning, like we should go to sleep at night, take rest, thinking, okay, I'm ready to wake up so I could chant purely. When we were in Austin, this great Sankarshan Das Adhikari Prabhu, he would always say, he always speaks very enthusiastic about everything in relation to Krishna. But he'd say, you have a spiritual revolution right there in your bead bag. You just have to chant purely. In the way that he talked about it, you could tell that he put a lot of energy on really trying to chant purely, really chant attentively. So, yeah, just attention to detail. We should refine our consciousness, depend on the Lord. Points. Don't know how I got to them, but I thought they're nice to talk about. Does anybody have any comments or questions or thoughts? It's Jai Keshava Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So this last question that Maharaj Parikshit's asking, what is the basic knowledge of the Vedic literatures, including the branches of history and the supplementary Puranas? Is it a correct understanding to say what is the basic knowledge of in relation to Krishna? Is that he's not asking about karma yoga and these things? It's all in relation to Krishna. Is that the correct understanding of?
I mean, I'm not so hyper aware of this whole conversation, but it seems as if he's just asking in a general way because he's asking what are the opulences of the great mystics. Before that, he says, kindly explain all about the elementary principles of creation. So, I mean, ultimately, everything's coming to Krishna, but he's questioning his guru, so he's laying his doubts, he's inquiring, and like Maharaj was saying about people just wanting to hear Rasa Leela. It's more in context of we should hear everything about Krishna, but not just we should hear about Krishna's Leela with the demons and the Rasa Leela, but we should hear about the creation, the material energy. In the Ishopanishad, there's this shloka I really like that one should understand transcendental knowledge and nescience side by side. So we should know everything. And in the 10 offenses to the holy names, one is to blasphemy, you could say, to disregard the Vedic scriptures, because even the Vedic scriptures that are supplementary, that are dealing with karma kanda and not directly Krishna consciousness, ultimately they're designed to lead one to Krishna consciousness. They're designed to help people go through a proper process where they rise up to a higher state, and then they realize from that higher state they have to come back down and it's not so good, and then that whole process is tied into a higher process, and they seek through more. They associate with the brahmanas who are actually performing the yagyas, and the brahmanas actually give them knowledge how to go higher and higher, and then from that way it all leads to Krishna. But it seems as if to me that he's just asking in general. But Shukadev Goswami, being a Krishna conscious bhakta devotee, everything that he's going to say is leading to Krishna. Which there was one other point that I was going to talk about where, like he asked, what is the opulences of the great mystics? And he says, how does the perfect mystic become detached from the subtle astral body? I remember reading about this. It comes up in, I don't know, a couple chapters or something, maybe the next chapter. But he's talking about the yogi like plugging all the holes of his body. He like takes his heel and he kind of like sits on his heel. I don't want to be too graphic, but then he like forces his life air, his prana out, and he forces it through the top of his skull, and he this way leaves his physical body. So that's just one indication where he's asking a question, and it's not like when he answers, it's directly about Krishna. So I hope that's a little bit more insight. All right, any other points? Yes.
Hare Krishna. I would like to share a few comments if that's okay. I wanted to say I like how Maharaj explained how a mother likes to hear any pastime of her son. It's not that like whether he's in the army or as a young child, she likes to hear all of it. I like that example. Also, I was thinking about what Rishi Kumar said last night in Bhagavad Gita class. He was saying that these yogis, they have to work so hard to work through like the 24 material elements. But the devotee, they could just say, okay, I'm going to skip all that and just go to the goal that they're trying to reach, which is bhakti, ultimately. And then another point I thought was when you were talking about fault finding, so His Grace Dravida Prabhu, he likes to say that he's really good at fault finding. So he happily took up editing Srila Prabhupada's books. So I really like how he says that. Yeah, thank you for sharing your realizations. Hare Krishna.
Yes, somebody who's really good at fault finding, they can engage that in Krishna's service by doing that or becoming a manager. Because then, you have to see everything and what everybody's doing. You have the tendency anyway, so you might as well purify it by engaging in a proper way. But yeah, okay. Thank you everybody for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Let's all try to put a little bit more attention to detail in our services and our chanting. Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Gauranatai ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhibhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.